Fenton, the Director of Research and Public Programs at the Library Company of Philadelphia, which significantly is a Franklinian institution. We were founded by Franklin in 1731, and today we are an independent research library with specialization in all things early Americana, but also print and visual culture, women's history, African-American history, and business and political economy. So we have these wonderful academic programs that are sustained by a network of now 1,200 odd fellows have passed through our fellowship program and have helped us to sustain this weekly series, Fireside Chats, our weekly webinar series. But this is a special webinar because I'm actually bringing in somebody who's not a fellow. He's actually an educator who's very excited about Franklin and thinking about Franklin in our contemporary moment. But before I dive into that, just a couple of notes about housekeeping. This is a Zoom webinar. So your camera, your microphone, whatever you're screaming at your computer at any given time, we can't hear it, but you can still participate. We have a Q&A thread, which you can access if you cursor around your screen. At the bottom, you'll see two overlapping dialogue, bubbles. That's a great place to put your questions because my eyes aren't so good and I'm going to miss them if you put them in the chat functionality. And I really do encourage you to make use of that Q&A thread because this is going to be a different kind of fireside chat. Instead of hearing about a book project or hearing about a work in progress, you're going to hear about a project that continues to grow. It's going to be more conversational. So I'm going to be going back and forth with our presenter today. And as I see questions pop up, I'm going to do my best to integrate them right into that conversation. So it's going to be an hour of conversation about Franklin in this moment and this wonderful sort of music reinterpretation, this musical reinterpretation of it. Our special guest tonight is Chris Kuncio, who is born and raised Philadelphian, who has spent the last 7 years teaching 12th grade English at Mastery Charter Lenfest in Old City. Over the same period, he has run a tour company where he's portrayed young Ben Franklin, the subject of tonight's talk. As the character, he produced a rap album. I mean, it's more than just an album. It's like 30 tracks. It's huge. That covers Ben Franklin's entire life. Is it more than 30 tracks?
We're looking at 34.
34 tracks. That's at least a double, I would say.
This is my opus.
Yeah. So he has produced a rap opus. So think Hamilton plus, right? A rap opus that covers Ben Franklin's entire life. He is currently trying to animate the album, which we're going to see a sneak preview of, and generate more entertaining content around American history and civics. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Will. Hi, everybody. My name is, Will's kind of butchered. I'm Chris Kuncio. It's all right, dude. No, everybody messes it up. Like Will said before, I encourage, while we're having the conversation, if you have questions, comments, or you just want to say that this is awesome, please share it on the chat in the Q&A. If you have criticisms, the Q&A does not work. You will not be able to chat that. But I really do want you to be able to ask any questions that you have as we go through. There's a lot of information here, and I could talk for days about Ben Franklin. So I really do want to encourage this to be a dialogue beyond just me and Will. So
yeah, definitely. So without talking for days about Ben Franklin, why Benjamin Franklin?
Well, I think that everybody here who is probably logged into the library company is probably as big a history nerd as I am. So you all know the answer, but the reality is, it's not something that you can just say in one sentence. The reality of America right here, right now, is that we are a country established on an idea. And the way that we look at our country, the way that we look at the foundations of our country, it's beyond just a sense of patriotism. It's really a religion. And we really look at the founding fathers and, we refer all of the conflicts that we are dealing with in contemporary time to what the founding fathers would have said about that. And so we're always kind of looking to these wise figures that we put in marble. And, there's really two, when you're talking about founding fathers, you're talking about really two big names. There's George Washington and there's Ben Franklin. And obviously we're Philly people. Ben Franklin reigns supreme. And he should, because when you're talking about America and this American idea and this idea of the American exceptionalism and the spirit, the architect of that spirit is Ben Franklin. Like Ben Franklin created what this idea of what American is supposed to be. And what I mean by that is he was our spokesperson. He was our marketer. He was the one going out to the world saying, "Hi, I'm America."
Yep.
And basically, like, the way he promoted himself is how the rest of the world viewed America. And through all the different parts of his life, through the different writings that he had, through his autobiography, which is very much the first piece of American literature. Like, it's an American story. It created what it is to be an American. And these values that are being debated over right now, like these foundational pillars of our country of capitalism, religion, Enlightenment thought, democracy, these were shaped by incidents, events during Ben Franklin's life. And while he didn't write the Declaration of Independence or write the Constitution, he is incredibly instrumental in crafting that image of what it is to be an American. And like, more on top of that than anything else, he's one of the most important founding fathers to know, other than George Washington. Or, you can talk about Jefferson, you can talk about Adams, you can talk about, I guess now we have to talk about Hamilton. But like, the reality is, if you're talking about any of these, Ben Franklin was the most fun person to learn about. Like, this guy had a personality. George Washington isn't like winning over crowds at a party. Ben Franklin like has this great personality and this great wisdom that really makes him like a key person to just understand what it is to be an American. So, that's basically why I would say, oh, here we go. All right, Ben Powell. Yeah, amen. Absolutely. Ben Franklin, he's the shit. He's on the $100 bill. Like, come on. And like, really, when it comes down to it, despite all of that, we know nothing about Ben Franklin.
Yes, widely, that's true. Yeah. I mean,
like, yeah, when I talk about Ben Franklin to my students, or even to tourists, the people who are coming to Old City to talk about or to learn about it, like, I say, what do you know about Ben Franklin? And the response is electricity. That's it. Like, it's not even like a full, he did this to electricity. It's just electricity. And so okay, what did he do with electricity? And then crickets. And so, did he discover it? Did he invent it?
He had a kite, I mean.
Oh, the kite and the kids, the thing, electricity. It's like, that's literally all they know about Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about tourists. I'm talking about Philadelphians. Like, I grew up in Philadelphia. I was born in the Pennsylvania hospital, Ben Franklin's hospital. Like, I was a history major in college. And it wasn't until I got on my first tour, which was like my first job out of college, that I realized I know nothing about him. And like, this was supposed to be my subject. And like, if someone who is so passionate about Philly, I mean, I got the skyline tattooed on my side, like literally, I knew nothing about such a key important figure. And the rest of the country does not know about him either. And frankly, half of the country is manipulating and corrupting the values like that he's believed in and like the ideas that he had for their own political gain. And it's just like, I really feel like Ben Franklin is like a really important figure that we all need to understand.
So briefly, like, what are the sort of key Franklinian values that you think are particularly relevant right now? Like, what are the key Franklinian values that you want people to know about?
Okay, so there is absolutely a sense of pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Like, hard work, like you gotta work hard, be industrious to become financially secure. But on the other, and so like, there is this idea of like individual responsibility, civic virtue, this idea of, if you're going to be a member of a democracy, if you're going to be a valuable, like, democratic citizen, there are virtues that you should be trying to live by, not always successfully. Because like, let's be real, like, I keep telling myself that I'm not going to bite my nails, but like, I was biting my nails before, but like trying to like be virtuous, like these are like trying to be honorable, like looking out for your well-being, but also like understanding that there's a balance also with helping out the common good and using resources for the common good.
Yep.
And I think that what I see like a lot within the political discourse of our country right now is there's a lot of talking about the individual liberties and the individual values, and not talking about like the idea of the responsibility of all of us for the common good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really key because there's also this idea of common sense. Like, depending on who's saying a Franklin quote, it's either like freedom fighter or oppressor. Like, there is a common sense understanding that comes with Franklin. And I really believe that like the key value of Franklin is the golden rule. Like, you take away everything else, treat others how you would want to be treated. And so like that's really where it comes, or what it comes down to with Franklin. So like that's really kind of key. Did that answer your question? I feel like
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think one of the things that we at the library company are particularly attuned to as like sort of his first subscription experiment is really like aligning individual interests with collective good, with public good, you know? So it's like,
it's a balance. Yeah.
it's a balance. And it's a balance whereby, you know, the library company benefited the community writ large, but it also benefited him and his colleagues, like the leather aprons that actually used it.
100%. Yeah. Like, when I would give the tour, I would like talk about this idea of there is Ben Franklin, the demigod who we hold up on a pedestal.
Yep.
And then there's Ben Franklin, the person who knew that image was everything. And so he was absolutely like, he wanted to help people, but he always made sure that everybody knew that he wanted to help people because that made him look really good.
Yep.
And then people would be like, oh, I'm gonna work with Franklin. I'm gonna I'm gonna go to his shop. I'm gonna buy stuff from him. I like Franklin. He totally capitalized on it. Like, he's not Jesus. He's not trying to be like completely like humble and all that. Like, he wanted to capitalize on his well-intentioned spirit. Great.
So as we're thinking about Franklin's image, if I go around the library and I look at the images that we have of him, the bus, the paintings, it's
just
all
the library,
like,
not the city as a whole.
I don't go around the city, you know.
Oh, okay.
No, of course I spend time around the city. In fact, I can't even get in the library right now. But
I know, I was just knowing where you're going with this. Go ahead.
But if I were to walk around our library and I were to look at depictions of Franklin, I would see Franklin as a middle-aged or elderly man, a statesman, like a very accomplished gentleman. So why are you choosing to focus this on the young, pre-gentleman, pre-statesman Franklin?
That was such a scholarly way of saying old, fat, and bald. Like, let's be real. Like, Franklin does not, like, when we think of him, he is a caricature. Like, he's old, he's fat, he's bald.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of reasons why I focused on the young element. First off, growing up as a millennial in Philadelphia, like born and raised, I was raised on, frankly, dated like renditions of Philadelphia, what Philadelphia is. The cheesesteak, Rocky, the Liberty Bell, and old bald fat Franklin. And I'm just tired of the same stuff. You know, like if you notice nowadays, like within media, within movies, within shows, they're moving beyond like the old shows. So like Star Wars, now they did the prequel. You know, like they like start focusing on like different storylines around it because people are tired of the same things over and over. So everybody's tired of Ben Franklin. And I know that because no one knows anything about Ben Franklin. And frankly, no one gives a shit because like they're looking at this old, bald, fat guy and like nothing's appealing about him. So that like, I'm trying to bring sexy back to Franklin, I guess you could say. But more importantly, and this is like the thing that really connects for me, when I see all these accomplishments, like scientist, inventor, statesman, diplomat, printer, writer, you know, yada, 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 like all these things. And I just imagine this old, bald, fat guy. It doesn't speak to me the way it does when I found out that he established the library company when he was 26 years old. Like, there is something
so little with my life, you know.
Oh, I'm 33. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I know, like, this dude's like way beyond me. But like that, like seeing that, like from a very early age, he was accomplishing this stuff. Like, he set up the library when he was 26. He set up the fire company when he was 30. You know, he wrote that essay. He like ran his own print shop for a little bit in Boston, like at the age of 16. Like, he set up the first satirical newspaper in the colonies, which was like the precursor to The Onion or The Daily Show. When he's 24, like he created the Poor Richard's caricature, which became like this, before he went off abroad, became the caricature of Americans. Like by the time he was 30, like this is a young guy who took his energy, took his, frankly, attention deficit disorder, and like just really just went everywhere with it. And he just tried from a very early age to make a difference. And that spoke to me, particularly because at that time, at the age of 26, I was becoming a teacher. And he, like, as a printer, like we think about, Ben Franklin was never a president. Like Ben Franklin was a printer, but really what Ben Franklin was is he was an educator. And he started that from a very early age. And so that spoke to me. That was very inspiring to me.
That's great. That's great. So just a quick factoid dropped in by Christine. She writes, Franklin enjoyed eating popcorn, which I didn't know was even a thing in the 18th century, but that's great to know. He experimented with a vegetarian diet. As
Yeah, we do know. And then he smelled fried fish and said, fuck it.
He swam unusual with a frog's feet attached. Is this the flippers that you wrote a song about?
Yeah. There's a debate about like when he actually did this, because like the primary source is Ben Franklin, so which is my favorite thing. Like he made his image, which is great.
Well, and I mean, that's exactly what she writes at the end. She writes, he was a self-promoter, an inventor, and a philosopher. I mean, that is the real Renaissance man there, that combination.
Yeah, Christine, you're just scratching the surface. Yeah, like he like literally did so much. But like the thing there is, I think the most humanizing part of it is the self-promoter.
Yeah.
Like he knew he was good. He knew he was doing good. And he also just knew how to make people like him.
Yeah.
Which was key.
Yeah, despite all of his evocations of humility and how important that was, he still found a way to brag a little bit, humble brag.
Yeah, it's funny because like as I started doing this, like there's only so much that you can like tell about a person in history. Like you can see the letters, you can see like the biographies and all that, but there has to be like an element of your interpretation for like the deeper part of him. And like a lot of like one of the things that like got me started pretending to be Ben Franklin is that when I would give the tour and talk about Ben Franklin, people would be like, you kind of seem like Ben Franklin. And because like I come off with some confidence. I come off like I'll come off very arrogant and cocky, but I also like, I want to do good, but I also have a whole lot of self-doubt. And so is it so wrong to imagine that maybe Ben Franklin, that was something that he was also battling with, like trying to navigate between like doubting himself a lot and like then overhyping himself up and then becoming kind of cocky in the like it's a very human element to be fickle and hypocritical and be one thing in one moment to one person and one thing to another. And so yeah, I don't know why I took so personally the fact that you just said he was arrogant, but it meant I felt like you were talking about me, so I felt like I had to defend him.
Of course I wouldn't talk about you that way, Chris. But I mean, certainly, I think that what's fun about Franklin, reading him again and again against all of his other works, is that there are these delightful incongruities. He talks about moderation and temperance, and yet we know that he enjoyed a drink. And as Will Jordan wrote in the Q&A, he also did have a reputation as a womanizer. And we know that he certainly found a way to promote his own accomplishments, despite his own, declarations about how important it was to be humble. And I think that, he's a person that feels human, right?
He's the most human of any of them. Yeah. Like one of the things, George Washington, the reason that he seems so cold and austere is when he died, Martha burned a lot of their letters.
That's right. Yeah.
And so like, we don't have an insight to him the way that we do with Franklin. And so Franklin is, we have an insight to Adams and like, all right, if you want to say that Adams is better than Franklin, go for it. I'm not about that. But like even like the womanizer, like that is honestly like when I say, what do you know about Franklin, it's like electricity and women. Like the womanizer thing is the thing that stands out because sex sells. But like one of the reasons why the reputation is, or why that reputation has stood, is because that was actually used as a political weapon in the early 1760s when he was running for office in Pennsylvania. And the fact that he had his first son, William, was out of wedlock, they use that as an excuse to, or basically call him a lecher and just say that he was a womanizer. And like, I'm not going to sit here and like spend too much time defending him and say, oh no, he was a virtuous person. Like, I'm sure he admitted like he loved low women when he was a bachelor, and when he was in France he had 2 mistresses at the same time. Like, as much as like, you just got to remember, like, the women loved him. Like, it's, yeah, he loved the women, but they also loved him. It was fish in a barrel. Like, when
That's
you're
exactly what Ben just wrote.
like, it's fish in it. Like, you're
Yeah,
you're Monsieur Electrique. Like he's Ben Franklin.
Yeah,
It's like talking to, like, I'm gonna be on the $100 ladies. Like, just hi. But anyway,
all right. So let's talk concretely about what it is you're doing with this young Ben Franklin. Because I mean, I introduced you on the Fireside Chat without any real descriptor, and I'm grateful that everybody just sort of went along with this. But I
love
wrote,
to talk Franklin.
That, like, you were the creator of young Ben Franklin. So what is young Ben Franklin?
So young Ben Franklin is a larger concept around this idea. It'd probably be better for me to like share my screen.
Show it.
Yeah. So
there's a lot there.
There's a lot of stuff, and to try and just dive into one is kind of difficult. So let me just, if you, we're going to be sending an email out later, and so you can see or go to my website. But the website is called franklinforprez.com. And so there's a lot of stuff here. So just so you understand a little bit about like the trajectory of my career, essentially, I started off by giving tours for the big bus company. Then after I started doing bus tours, I started doing walking tours. And, just started developing my own kind of a style and became my own tour guide with it. And it was like when I started doing a lot of research about Ben Franklin that I became really fascinated. I've already talked about like the young Ben Franklin, like the appeal that is there, like the young, funny satirist who's enjoying life. And the first plan was actually to write a TV show. I had seen the Addams miniseries. I'd seen other time period pieces. Like, time period pieces are like the thing. Like, if you're fans of Outlander, I'm sure a lot of you are, because I am. So like, just these time period pieces have become big. Like, they've replaced zombies and vampire werewolf movies. And so like, I wanted to write this show, and so I started really trying to create a character, Franklin, and I applied myself. I applied my own personality to it, and I thought a way to do that was I'd start giving a tour as myself, as Ben Franklin. Now, essentially, and so if we scroll down, first off, that is an animated rendition of me. Don't I look so great? So this is Franklin for President. So these are some of the pictures of just me from my tours, like back in the day, like last year. And I would just give walking tours. And the thing is, like, quickly what would happen is I started taking a skill that I had utilized in my classroom. Because you have to remember, like, while the Franklin stuff is going on, this has been like a project for more than 7 years. It's been like almost 10 years. But I've been a teacher in Old City, Philadelphia, on the same block that Franklin's print shop, his house is, in that same time. It's like not fate. I don't know if I believe in fate, but it's definitely weird that like coincidentally worked out that way. But one of the things I would do with my students is I was a huge rap fan growing up. And so I would start incorporating rap into the classroom. Like, I would either use vocabulary words and turn them into raps to help the students learn the vocab words, or I would just do rap summaries of chapters of books. So I like did a great like rap about the big party from The Great Gatsby. And also I think one of the first things I did in like 2011 is I wrote a rap biography of George Washington. And I called it The Dead President. And it was to Jay-Z's Dead Presidents. And so what ended up happening is I just realized, okay, I'm actually kind of good at this. Like, it's not as hard as I thought. Like, my kids were into it. And so what I did is I converted my like just standard walking tour as Ben Franklin into a rap tour. And I'll have you know, let it be clear, this is before I knew anything about Hamilton. Like, the first ideas came like 2013, 2014.
Miranda stole this from you, huh? Yeah.
I just want to be clear, like, yeah, he wins all that, but I didn't just like, hey, he did it, so I'm going to do it. Now, that being said, like, eventually I realized the success of it, and I'm like, maybe I can capitalize on this too. But like, I did have the same idea. So I created a tour company where I would give raps during the tour, because it also made it easier for me to take this gigantic, long story and make it more concise and consolidate it into a fun and engaging way. So I wrote these raps for it. And so that became my tour company, the Philly OG, which stands for Philly Official Guide, but play on words. Very Franklin. And so as I started giving these tours as Ben Franklin, I also started playing with the idea of, what if Ben Franklin were actually alive now? Like, say he came back to life thanks to impossible science. You know, I mean, if they can bring dinosaurs back, they can bring Ben Franklin back. And so I started like playing with this idea of, okay, I have this story of Ben Franklin, you know, from his original life. But what if I were Ben Franklin and I came back to life? Would I be getting into science stuff? Absolutely not. Like, we always overextend Ben Franklin on that. Like, Ben Franklin died 20 years before the bike was invented. Like, his inventions included taking two pairs of glasses and putting them next to each other. Like, or the lightning rod, a giant needle. Like, he's not exactly the most like mechanical of inventors and all that. He was just really clever. But like, so science would be out. So what would Ben Franklin probably do if he came back to life, complete culture shock and all that? Well, he'd probably start giving tours, telling people about his life, because that's literally the only thing that he can do. And so I started just kind of like building from there. And so I started writing out ideas of what else would Ben Franklin do? Well, he'd probably realize that no one can read the autobiography that he wrote because no one writes like that anymore. The use of the semicolon back then is just absurd. You see full sentences that are written at paragraph length. And so Ben Franklin would figure, maybe I should translate this into modern English. And so I spent 10 months a couple of years ago rewriting the autobiography of Ben Franklin in his own words. And so actually, if you were to click here, I gave the first couple chapter examples that I did. But I am actually going to end up going back and doing another edit of it. But you can get an idea of where I'm going with this.
So you're translating autobiography into like modern English then?
I'm doing that. And what I'm adding to it also is his other writings. And so
cool.
It's going to be the autobiography of Ben Franklin, but it's also going to be an edited version of him as Silence Dogood, him as Poor Richard, a couple of his other essays. And then also a couple other writings that I did, because one of the things, like when Ben Franklin taught himself how to write, he did so by basically rewriting, paraphrasing texts that were in his brother's print shop. And so that would be Plutarch's Lives or Aristotle's Poetics or the political writings of the English Enlightenment. And so I'm going to incorporate a couple of those where I think it's sprinkling them in to season it up. But really just, I'm trying to make a modern autobiography that really could like speak to audiences nowadays in a way that the format back then just would not. So this is a long-term project that I'm still working on, but you can get a feel of kind of where I'm going with that. I also wrote some just thoughts and writings about what Ben Franklin would be thinking now. Mostly are satirical, but also I am trying to tap into his spirit a little bit. I get political as well. I am a liberal English teacher teaching in inner city Philadelphia. I have very, very clear political leanings and strong opinions about it. And so I think Ben Franklin would as well if he was experiencing the same stuff I was as a high school teacher. And so, I get into some political stuff, but I also have fun. I think Ben Franklin would be absolutely making a campaign right now that America's team is not the Dallas Cowboys, but rather the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm just going to let that sit there. So if you're curious, you're going to have to read more about that. But my logic actually makes a whole lot of sense.
Well, except the 76ers would be called like the Pigeons, right?
Why?
Didn't he like pigeons? No, it was turkeys. Turkeys, the Philadelphia turkeys.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop the share here really quick. Let me clarify something about that.
Please do.
He was joking. Yes, he was joking. All right, if you're thinking about seriously what Ben Franklin would think America's animal is, it would absolutely be the rattlesnake. He used
because of the join or die thing.
because of the join or die thing, but because like that was like the American animal. He used that essay he wrote an essay when Great Britain was trying to send convicts over. When Great Britain was trying to send convicts over to the colonies, he's like, okay, we'll take your convicts, but you're going to take our rattlesnakes. Like the rattlesnake was he was very connected with this rattlesnake. And so I feel like he would absolutely be pitching for the rattlesnake as the nation's animal. The turkey, like, he was older, he was having fun with it. Like, it was at the same time that he was writing to the Belgian Society of Scientists that, hey, you guys aren't doing any good for science, so why don't you just learn how to make farts smell better? Like, that's literally, like, he was getting eccentric with his time. He was having fun with life. He was enjoying the fact that he was Ben Franklin.
But young Ben Franklin would take it more seriously, is what you're saying.
Oh, no, are you kidding me? I don't really care if people think that the Cowboys are America's team. But like, I do think that there would be an argument to be made that the 76ers are in fact America's team more than the Cowboys.
All right, let's make sure that we touch upon all the high points here, because we still haven't gotten to your magnum opus.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll pick up speed. So so I had done writings. I'm working on a curriculum to connect. Like, there's a lot of fun stuff that I've done, because I'm not a history teacher, I'm an English teacher. And so I've been approaching this whole story of Ben Franklin also from the idea of how to tell a story. And so like, there's a lot of fun stuff that I've done in class that I'm trying to then connect with the Franklin stuff.
Is that a turkey I see?
Well, like, he's gonna own it at this point. I'm just being clear.
Okay, all right.
Humans, we can be hypocritical. We got like different like facets of our lives.
Contains multitudes, I get it.
Exactly, yeah. Compartmentalize. But anyway, also, like, so, but like the first attempt that I had of actually doing Franklin stuff, like using hip hop, was actually the mixtape, the Franklin mixtape that I have right here. And so what I actually had done is I recorded some of my vocab raps, because you have to understand that some of my vocab raps actually became, it became a competition with other students who would write vocab raps. And sometimes it got kind of heated, not like heated, but like we were having fun with each other. They would, call me by my first name. I would say, this is why your grades are bad. Like, we'd have fun. So I made this whole mixtape, and we're going to play a song later, I believe. But really this all kind of led to, I wanted to make a one-man show for my tour. And what very quickly happened is I took so much of my talking parts of the tour and turned it into my hip opera, B. Franklin corrected and amended. And so I initially released it in 2019, and I not quickly, but like, I didn't know how to market it. Like, I was just like, the fact that I was me as the teacher, sorry, my dog is barking upstairs. The fact that me as a teacher was able to like create this album, I was pretty proud of it. But yeah, no one's going to listen to just a 30-track album immediately. So I've gone about re-releasing it. And one of the things I've done is that I've decided I want to animate it, basically make it a new like Schoolhouse Rock, essentially, for the new generation. So Will, is this a good time for me to play the first song?
I think it's absolutely essential. Yeah.
I've been talking for so long, we might as well take a break. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the first song from my track, or from the album. If you have questions about the song, I do encourage you to just write out the questions in the Q&A. I'm going to play a couple songs from the album just so you can get a feel for it. It goes hard. I'm not going to lie. I am not Hamilton, like hip hop, but really Broadway musical meets hip hop. I am Ben Franklin. This is a Philly rap album.
Jay-Z, yeah.
Exactly. So I got to stop my share really quick so I can make sure that I'm sharing the volume. All right, sharing computer sound. All right, Will, can I just get a thumbs up if you can hear it?
Will do.
All right, I'm gonna shut up now.
The body of B. Franklin, printer. Like the cover of an old book, its contents torn out and stripped of its lettering and gilding, lies here, food for worms. But a work shall not wholly he lost, for it will, as he believed, appear once more, in a new and more perfect edition, corrected and amended by the author. He was born on January 6, 1706, died April 17, 1790. Resurrected in 2019.
I'm America's Aristotle, my logic rivals the Bible. Philly's philosophical Americano model, second coming of the grandfather. Here's my tabernacle. I'm holding all the power, everybody's golden idol. My followers, the fathers, 56 disciples, got a posse of apostles, and my title runs for miles. I'm a printer, a writer, diplomatically delightful, inventor, leader, educator, everybody smile. Sharper than a knife, I sharpen minds like a file. The doctor's got a scalpel, open minds, I'll make your mind full. Chosen one, I'll pour that pure cure off from my vial. It's that good stuff, lightning in the motherfucking bottle. It's chosen by the gods.
It's the hour of my arrival.
The free world's on fire, Lady Liberty's defiled. I'll revise my book, an autobiographical revival. Recite a dissertation on why I'm a demigod, bro. Do you have it? Did I go too fast? Do you have it? Did I go too fast? I'm Benjamin Franklin. I'm back from the past, about to show you how to make a legacy last. As we begin our story, the first thing is to forget everything you think you know about me. Forget the stale image you have of me. Understand, my amazing exploits began at a very young age. I mean, this is why I'm great. I just have to say, I wasn't old, bald, and fat always. See, back in the day, I was real athletic, a chalk white ginger. Yep, I was red-headed. I'd fight the apprentices of other tradesmen and knock them when they're down on the ground as an exclamation point. See this boy, young Ben, such a prodigy, top-notch scholarly. Gosh, Pop's proud of me. Skipping grades quick, I put a clinic on these fools. I'm so hot, ha, ha, get me to the pool. I learned how to swim, taught the styles to myself. Hell, I invented swimming flippers when I was 12 straight. Facts, I saw ducks paddling with webbed feet, made wooden paddles for my hands. Neat technique, simple thing, my design so plain, yet I'm in the International Swimming Hall of Fame. Dang. And that's why I'm great. Well, at least one way.
All right.
Oh man, I love the sense of humor. It's just great. And
Yeah, I mean, you gotta stop. You can't have you can't do it without a sense of humor.
yeah, and I mean, so like you end with the flippers, which is a great thing that I actually didn't know about. How did you choose the details that you wanted to sort of push to the front in that song?
So technically, those are actually, when I started it, they're actually two different songs. The first one is actually, like, if you remember, there is that epitaph on the I can't think of the word, the tombstone, which was an epitaph that he wrote when he was 24 years old. Like, and so like it was very prophetic, like that one day he would come back.
Is that is that the one that he cites in Autobiography and he talks about himself as a text?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I stay very true to Franklin with this. But like the idea is that I was trying to the album is a very linear trajectory of his life. And so, you know, I have to introduce, like, both of those are actually part of a larger series called Demigod, where that beat I use multiple times as, like, while a lot of the songs in the album are chapters or episodes of his life that like talk on various different parts of it. It always kind of comes back to this analysis, which is just following his trajectory from like a prodigy, which is that second verse, to a legend, which is the last song in the entire album. But that first verse is really like the introduction, like, I am a demigod. I like am the demigod. I am the guy. And so this is the trajectory of my life. And so we're gonna play another song momentarily from this part, because the full album is not out on Spotify. It's not out streaming, because from marketing purposes, no one is going to listen to a 32-track album. I broke it down to 4 parts, and each of the parts follow a specific theme. And so the first part is following, like, each of these themes connect to one of those pillars I talked about before that he represents. So democracy, enlightenment thought, capitalism, religion. And this first one really focuses on religion and his issues with religion, his battling, trying to understand his own faith, trying to figure out like where he belongs with all of it, his constant aggravation from religious authorities trying to impose their beliefs on him. And so like the correlation is he is establishing that he is this demigod figure in America's religion, and then spends the rest of the album making fun of hardcore zealots who do not question religion and criticizing like people who blindly follow religion. And so there's supposed to be a parallel there that hopefully people will get, but I'm going to explain to you guys right now. So
yeah, no, there's in volume 1, which is Heretic, you even have like a track that basically explains his deism, which I think is great. I mean, I can't imagine how useful that is.
So that you guys, like, you have to understand, like, Ben Franklin is like the perfect, like, with all due respect to Lin-Manuel, because like Hamilton is a masterpiece. Hamilton is a like beautiful piece of art. And like Lin-Manuel explained it, that like he thought that Hamilton was a pure embodiment of hip hop. I would respectfully disagree and say that Ben Franklin is actually an even purer representation of rap, which is actually, I think, the purest representation of what America actually is. And so like the song about deism, it's called The Thesis.
Yep.
Yeah, there's the Drake reference, like the motto. But like, as opposed to YOLO, which is you only live once, it's GWUP, which is God wants us partying. And I basically used his essay, what was it? Treatise on, or the dissertation on necessity, pleasure and pain. It's such a long-winded title. But it was a treatise that he wrote at the age of 19, just talking about like deism and how essentially, because everything that we do is what God intended, really everything we do, even if it's bad, is God's intent. So is there really such a thing as sin? I don't think so. So really God wants us to party, because pleasure, it's all about pleasure. That's for all of you Franklin people, I know that it's a little bit more complicated from that, but like if I'm trying to market this, I'm keeping it simple. And I think that, like, I think I tell a very good story with it. Like I try to find that balance of telling a good story, blending it with his writings and his theories to make a very poignant. I mean, most of my songs have a purpose and can be connected to events that are going on in the country nowadays.
Yeah, so let's hear another track from that Heretic volume. And I want to sort of play to the home team here. We have a lot of Philadelphians on.
Oh hell yeah! I was gonna play no matter what. Let's do it.
Philly, the Quaker City. You know, like let's talk about the Holy Experiment.
Yeah, so as I set it up, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to give you a little bit of background. Me being a big hometown Philadelphian, I feel like we are missing an anthem in the city. We don't have an anthem. And I had a problem specifically with Hamilton. Like my only beef with it is they just made it seem like New York was like where everything was. Like in New York, you can be a new man. I'm just like, oh, shut up. And so I wanted to make a response. And so I wrote a song called Lib City, but I broke it down into 2 parts. The first part is in this album. The second part is at the Revolutionary Declaration of Independence time. And that's the banger. That's like this when the 76ers decide that I would make a great mascot. Like that's the song that we're gonna play. But this is
if you prefer to play the banger, I think we're all ready to go with you. I mean,
oh no, this one's shorter. This one's this is still a banger. In fact, I tried to give a little nod to Meek Mill, who like spits in a more rapid fire lyrical style.
Philadelphian rapper.
Yeah. Oh. I forgot that I'm not like with my students. Things, you know? Yeah. I feel like Meek Mill is like the Philly rapper now, like that everybody knows, and like he has a more rapid fire. And so I tried to match that with this song, which is called Holy Experiment. All right, so Lib City Part 1, The Experiment. These are all on YouTube, by the way. Can you hear it? Let me know. Afterwards,
we're doing a commercial right now.
I mean, I'm excited for Mortal Kombat.
I couldn't leave Boston fast enough. I hate the gross abuses of power by the clergy who are desperately trying to maintain their authority. Plus, the Puritans believe you're most likely destined for hell, which is really stupid. I found greener pastures in Quaker Philadelphia. What is up? throw your motherfucking hands up. Philly, Philly, it's our damn anthem. Now throw the bottles up, we'll hold it down. Liberté City, USA's hometown. Philly, Philly,
Lib City,
Philly, Philly,
Liberty,
Philly, Philly.
Lib City.
Yo, we're throwing down in the hometown of Liberty. Hop off that boat, I see Vice in the street. I'm liking this scene. Market Street steaming with bars and harlots and all types of diversity. Holy experiment invented by William Penn, our imminent friend. It was claimed he was the greatest lawgiver that God ever graced to man. Jefferson said it, I really came in and vibed with him. I'd ride with him. I tried to find a philosophy of my own life, then get mine aligned with his. Born into wealth, wasn't for him. Joined the religious society of friends. Age of 20, daddy was pissed. Hated hippie, dippy pacifist. This activist was cast into prison. He screamed, I dream to be religiously free. Kicked out of England, the kingdom colony all up across the sea. Called it Philadelphia, brotherly love in Greek. Decreed that all religions could come and worship independently. Big on equality, believe that faith with God should be between her and me. But tolerance and equality are less realistic and more of a dream. Different religions sharing innovation and their creativity, as well as their bias, their fear, their prejudice, and their hate, it would seem. Well, that's the way that the cookie crumbles. Every time we take a step forward, we then stumble. But growth is all about bruises and bumps, bro. Push back, pendulum swings will grow some more. And Philly, Philly,
Lib City,
Philly, Philly,
Liberty,
Philly, Philly.
Lib City.
Bunch of love and brothers shoving in the crib of liberty.
Well, I think this is the first time we've played a Philadelphia anthem on Fireside Chats.
That people don't even realize is an anthem yet. Like, you guys are getting it exclusively. Like, look, I know that, like, I'm obviously gonna like feel very strongly about my work, but like I am very proud of how like this music came out. Like, there's like multiple people that helped me like produce the music and all that, and so I'm very happy with the beats. Like, the beats
Yeah,
make
so
everything.
like, talk to me about how you do this, because you have a day job and then you're doing like a million things through Young Ben
Yeah.
Franklin. How are you producing these tracks at such like a high production value?
Fortunately, within the digital realm, like there are many like producers, musicians who like dabble with it, and I was fortunate enough to find somebody who was able to take kind of my vision. So like when I like came up with the music, the idea was, imagine if Rick Ross produced Les Miserables. Like, that's how I kind of went about it. Like I was big on trap rap. And so, you know, as I'm listening to like Rick Ross Pandora or like other like whatever like songs I'm trying to like feel connected with, I will normally listen to, like, I'll find a beat, you know, like I'll have a, you know, be a couple drinks in, like, you know, let the artistic juices flow. And normally like an idea just kind of comes to me. And so what I'll normally do is, excuse me, write like based off that instrumental or the instrumental to that song, and then like build off of it. And so, but then so I'll go to the producer and say, I want the bass line, like I want those, like the 808s, the beats, the drums to match this rap song. And I want the melody to be similar to this song. So if you noticed at the beginning of Lib City, there was the dun 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 dun. That's Master of the House from Les Miserables. Like, and so I like dropped little things like that in a lot of the songs. Like the Demigod, that was, I took Montana of 300, who is like a very, very heavy duty gangster rap. Like I listened to a couple of his songs, and I added that to Mozart's Requiem. And so like but like, you know, you got to mix it up a little bit to make it a little bit different and all that. But that's how they kind of come together. And then fortunately for me, this producer was able to, you know, make like magic out of it. And like, so I'm beyond ecstatic with how the music kind of came out.
What a great producer.
Yeah, it was awesome. And he was also an educator. He's, I think, now up in Boston.
That's
But
cool.
he was in Philly.
Let's sort of bring this full circle.
Mhm.
Your day job is you're an English teacher, 12th graders, not
Yep.
an easy crowd. How are they responding to this?
So one thing that, like, I know that like the movie version of this would be that I won them over and they all did it. Like they think that like it's fire. Like they like will say, yo, that's hard. That's awesome. But I haven't been able to, part of it is I'm still like a little self-conscious with it. And so all it takes is one person to be like, I don't want to listen to this. Cause like literally you have to understand the thing about students and teenagers. They will sit there and say, oh, we're watching a movie again. Like no matter what you put in front of them, they're going to be bored with it. And so like they know that I can spit. They know that like they love like when I like roll it out occasionally and all that sort of stuff. I haven't been able to incorporate a full lesson or like unit plan with it yet, though that is a plan down the line. But they like the kids love it. The kids like I have a very good relationship with my students in general. But as an English teacher, I'm not able to like we have a curriculum that we work through. And I don't have much time to be able to put this in. And so this, like, I'm able to put it in occasionally as like a Friday lesson.
Yeah.
But to be completely honest, like this last year, I haven't put any of it in. And that's more of a testament to my own hesitation based on my the last year has been a lot with the pandemic, but also with George Floyd and my own realization of complicity within, the white supremacist structures of society. And I had to do my own soul searching within myself, but also recognize that maybe I should, like, I had to like have conversations, uncomfortable conversations with, fellow educators of color about whether or not I should even be rapping about a man who did own enslaved people for 20 years.
Yep.
We always love to just skip over that and talk about how he was an abolitionist. But there is a very real conversation to be had about the fact that I am taking a music form that has become very much a part of Black culture and using that to rap about somebody that like was part of establishing the white supremacist structures that society is still struggling to break away from today. And so I needed to, like, this past year has not only been me doing soul searching about myself, but like doing much more research about like, where did Franklin stand? How did Franklin evolve? Because he did evolve. And I think that like now I feel much more in a position that I can not defend, because I'm never going to defend it, but rationalize why I think that this figure, this man who was racist, who was so prejudiced because he was raised in a society that was like that, but he eventually was able to adapt or read, reflect, and change. And so he wasn't able to accomplish much at the end of his life, but that evolution and that change, I think, is a model that society needs to be able to view and emulate nowadays.
Yeah.
But like but for my students, like, I had an uncomfortable conversation with them last year about it, and they got it. Like after but like it was an uncomfortable conversation. Like they were like asking, why did you do this? Like, why would you incorporate him? Like, because at the last volume of my album, like I start really connecting and talking about those elements and like the realizations that he was having at the end of his life. Like I want to be very clear that like I take a lot of, like, while this is a very silly project, I take like it very seriously because I think that it's incredibly important to understanding our country. And so like I do take a lot of time to dive into that at the end. But at the early part of his life, he was just worrying about like becoming successful, and so he wasn't thinking about those oppressions that he was being involved in. And so yeah, it's been an evolution, and I look forward to continuing my conversations and collaborations with teachers of color, so that I can put something in front of my students that is culturally responsible. Because there are a lot of conversations that can be had even about like, should a white guy be rapping about this? Like my response is, well, it depends. Are they like I'm trying to do it for good, but like, you know, there's gonna be people out there who's no matter what are going to be offended by this. And it's just like one of those things that I have to really think about and take seriously as I like continue with this project.
Yeah, so it sounds like we have this really privileged spot here in the audience of hearing you sort of working through this reflective process.
It's hard. It's very hard. Yeah.
And I'm just curious to know, like, what parts of this, you know, wide-ranging project that you've outlined for us are you like most clear-sighted about where you're going to go next? Like the parts of this project that you want to carry forward right now?
Well, just for the sheer, what I know is the most sellable is the album. And I want to animate the album. Like, I think that animating this album and having my curriculum or having a curriculum to go along with it is something that, like, I mean, you all saw it. Like, I hope that you found it somewhat entertaining and engaging. Like, it's something that you could be watching with your kids. It could be something that you're like, oh, I've had a couple drinks. Let me watch something silly. This is awesome. Like, but like, it also be something that you'd watch in the classroom. And by animating this album, I'm able to make it more accessible, more visible to more people, and providing a curriculum that can have guiding questions, that can like have reflective thoughts to go with it. That's like the most immediate. But like, I mean, it, like that, and that's obviously the thing that's going to pop the most, because like rapping Ben Franklin, like once you get past the initial, oh God, another one, like, and you actually listen to it, like there's going to be interest.
Yeah.
I like to think so, at least. And so I'm putting my eggs right now in that basket. And then hopefully, you know, I can raise, like I've already there. I mean, like I said, I wrote three season story arc and also the first 3 episodes of a TV show. You know, I already rewrote the autobiography. I just need to go back and edit it. I already have plans for another album, Ben Franklin, focusing specifically on 1787 and the Constitutional Convention, but also the collaborations with Richard Allen and Absalom Jones to make the Free African Society. Like there's and like it opens the door to my just general or hip hop education. Like I want to raise I want to create an engaging and different approach to civics education as well, because I think that there is a huge dearth right now of just like good common sense like education, even if it's something as simple as just like learning how to like see through manipulative news, like seeing through the bias, like there's so much there. And it's hard right now for me because I have a full-time teaching job. You know, I have a 2-year-old baby. But like the goal is to like be able to make a living out of this so that I can, you know, focus on these projects full time and really like get them into fruition.
Well, I certainly appreciate you sharing this with us. This has been a totally atypical in the best sort of way fireside chat. I've really enjoyed chatting with you, and I see from some of the comments here that others have enjoyed it too. So thank you so much, Chris. I really do appreciate you sort of letting us into this process and sharing something that's very clearly a labor of love.
I appreciate it. And I really like, I hope that you all like take the time, reach out if you're interested in learning more about it. I am still trying to, you know, raise awareness to this. And so I'm glad that you, my fellow nerds, were able to enjoy and appreciate it too.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us on this Thursday night. And thank you most of all, Chris, for sharing this project with us. Have a great night, everybody. Cheers.